Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm here to happy to be here with you on Tuesday. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And I am thrilled today to have Kelsa Dickey with us. Kelsa and I met a couple of months ago, and I am just so excited to speak with her about fiscal fitness. And I just love that so much. And she is actually a certified financial coach. And it just makes so much sense. Like when we're looking at our physical fitness, we want to have a coach and learn. So the importance of fiscal, of money, of investments, and having a coach to stand by you. So Kelsa's going to teach us an amazing framework today that she's going to tell us about and how it really weaves into all parts of our lives. So thank you for being here, Kelsa.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I know money just touches our well-being overall. We often think about our body when it comes to well-being, but financial stress plays a huge role in our overall well-being and our physical stress and how we carry that stress and that sort of thing. So I love talking about the financial element of well-being.
Yeah. And, one of the major underlying causes of perimenopause and menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, like fatigue, like irritability, even weight gain, those all are related to stress and underlying stressors. And if we don't learn to manage that stress, it's really going to be hard to just think that there's going to be a quick fix for all of the changes that are happening to our bodies in our 40s and our 50s.
Yeah, absolutely. And until this year, money was the number one cause of stress in our country, according to the American Psychological Association. This is the first year in decades that work stress is number one as far as Americans are concerned. But up until now, it has been money as the number one cause of stress. And it's proven that it leads to the greater severity and greater frequency of migraines, ulcers, sleepless nights, hot flashes, like you were saying, all sorts of things. So it's really important that we don't just skim over this when we're thinking about our physical health.
Exactly. And yeah, it's so true. We think about physicality and how we're moving and how we're eating. And of course, those are super important. But outside stressors, we have to learn to manage them and to feel better about the choices that we're making. So tell us about the framework and how you came up with it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I call this the gains framework, and it was something that I designed years ago, really based on having conversations with clients, one after another, and helping them think through big financial decisions. And when I say the word big, big is relative, right? So it can just feel impactful or significant to you, and that counts, right? And the idea here is that helping a person have a framework for how they make really smart financial decisions means that we're not winging it each time, or we're not sort of coming up with a new way every time we have a decision we're trying to face. Having a framework says, here's the process I'm going to go through so that I can ensure that I'm making these decisions the same way every single time. And so I designed it's 5 steps. I'm going to teach those 5 steps today. And then the idea is that anytime a person has a big decision coming up, this should help them to feel more in control of sort of what should I even be considering and that sort of thing. I will say that most of the time we use this with any big financial decision, but the most often, the time when we use it most often is when it comes to investing in yourself in some sort of fashion. So whether that's investing in a program or hiring a coach, looking to hire, let's say, a personal trainer or someone like that, any type of investment in yourself. Maybe you're thinking about going back to school or buying a rental property, right? Like you're investing in your future in some way. Any type of big decision like that, this framework will work beautifully to follow.
Amazing.
Okay, good. So let's dive in. Really, the idea is to have a framework that really points to what the big decision is all about so that we're not getting distracted by letting our brain sort of run amok, right? I call that mind drama. It's also to help us compare both the costs of the decision and the gains of the decision. Now, what happens in our brain is that we are trying to compare the cost of something, and it's oftentimes a very clear cost, right? How much is the program or the coach or the decision going to cost me? It's a very tangible number, right? But what we're trying to do is compare that to what we will gain from the decision. And the gains are oftentimes intangible, right? So we're either going to free up time, or we're going to feel better. Our identity is going to shift. We're going to be solution focused. We're going to feel physically better, right? And all of those are beautiful benefits that we're hoping to gain from making that decision. But how do you put a number on that? And then our brain doesn't know what to do. It can't compare a tangible cost with an intangible benefit. So it makes the decision to invest really, really hard. And then oftentimes we can see how it's going to cost us in other ways. And so we want to be able to compare those things more completely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And it's
Okay.
interesting. It's interesting because like, if you think about a certain amount of money, like that's going to buy you a new car, or that's going to send your kid to college. And, one you can see like, and compare, it's comparing apples to oranges, or investing in yourself and how you're going to feel about yourself.
Exactly. And I think if we only look at the financial part of the decision, we're not mentally or emotionally preparing for the shift that comes after a big decision oftentimes.
Exactly.
So this process also helps us prepare for what's to come if we were to commit to it, right? So step one is to identify what the decision will cost you. Now, this is pretty easy. It's like, yes, typically the financial cost, but it's not just the financial cost. You also want to think about what will it cost you as far as time or energy. So if you're like, oh, that's an hour a week with a coach, that's an hour a week I'm going to need to find to have that conversation, right? That coaching session. Maybe it's, patience, or, you're going to be challenging yourself in some way. So the question though is like, what will it cost me? And we're going to get deeper and more sort of involved the more the questions go. Okay. So the first one is fairly surface level, fairly easy. What will that cost me? Okay. And typically this is a pretty clear answer. Now, step two, we're going to take it a step deeper, is what do I fear this decision will cost me? Now, this isn't just the financial part of it. It is things like, if someone wants to hire, let's say, a nutrition coach, they may fear that they can't go out with their girlfriends and have wine, right? That coach is going to like take that away from them, right? Or they may fear that they're going to become obsessed, right? So this is sometimes a fear that someone says when they're hiring a financial coach, is like they fear that they're going to have to know where every dollar goes, or they're going to have to track every penny. So they're going to have to like over invest like in time and effort and that sort of thing. And they don't want to become that type of person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the idea here is to really get to the root of, what am I worried about? What do I think might happen that I really don't want to say will happen? Because if I'm a bodybuilder, let's say, or I'm thinking of going into bodybuilding, I think this idea of eating chicken and rice and vegetables every single meal sounds horrible, right? Before I've actually made the decision and committed to that. So the idea is like, we have these fears of like, how will this affect me? How will this change who I am? And you want to just get to the root of that. And the reason this is so important is because these things are not reasons not to move forward. But our brain, before we identify them, that's exactly what it's doing. It's telling us, don't do this because this might come, this might change, this might happen, right? What these things are, they become our guardrails. These are the things we actually want to communicate with the coach that we're hiring, right? So if I am hiring a nutritionist and I go out once a month with my girlfriends and have a glass of wine, and that's really important to me for social interaction, my emotional well-being, like those types of things, I actually just want to talk with my coach about that and say, how can I make this part of my plan? Because I'm worried that you're going to tell me I can't do this, or I worry that I'm going to give up my friendships and my social status for this step that I want to take. So in other words, it's really important to know these things because they're there anyway in our brains. And two, we actually just want to communicate them with the person we're hiring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I'm curious, some fears maybe that a person might have when they are investing in a program to take better care of themselves. Maybe something like, I'm worried about prioritizing myself over my kids.
Yeah, they're making it more important for them, for themselves to take all of their time with their kids and not taking any time for themselves. So they're worried that about what they're going to have to give up rather than what they're going to gain in terms of feeling better. And that's what I hear a lot.
Right. It's definitely there. Right. So we're going to go into the gains next, but this is where if I were a client and I was thinking of hiring you, I would meet with you beforehand and say, hey, I'm really worried about this. This is a fear that I have. And your job as the coach is to say, we can work around that. Let's stay in communication about that going forward. Let's make sure you're always feeling good about this. What are some things you don't want to give up? What are some non-negotiables for you? So you can actually just create a conversation around it, as opposed to it being something that that person fears and is like a valid fear, right? So the idea is like, we wouldn't want to design a program that costs somebody more than what they gain from the program, right? It's never how something is designed. So the idea is that we want to have that conversation in advance, which is why it's so important for the person to have self-awareness around what it is that they fear about it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fear is often what will happen if I start taking this time back for myself.
What I hear that all the time as well. And the nice thing about sort of facilitating this framework with so many clients over the years is that clients are oftentimes thinking about hiring someone else, not me, when we're having this conversation, which is kind of a beautiful glimpse that I get into the decision-making process, right? Because I don't have a horse in the race. It's kind of like, I'm just there to sort of facilitate the client's learning and growth. And when they say that, what I notice is they're worried about sort of losing their sense of self. Like they won't recognize themselves a year later, or they're going to start making decisions from a place that they don't want to make decisions from. Does that make sense? Like they're worried about like, all of a sudden I'm going to become the type of person that's really selfish and only puts myself first and completely abandons ever thinking about my children and what is good for them. And most people, and like for money, people will often say something like, I'm worried I'm going to become obsessed about money, that the only thing I care about is money, and that the thing that I make decisions about is always about money and nothing else, right? And my job as a coach is to say, if that is a concern to you and you don't want to, go in that direction, my job is to help you to ensure that that doesn't happen, right? So my job is to help you create balance, is to gain these benefits you want to gain without costing you too much, right? And we just want to keep that open dialogue, right?
Yeah.
So step 3 then, so once you sort of identify, here's what it's going to cost me, and then that second question of like, what am I afraid that it will cost me? Like really, what's a little bit deeper than that fear, that cost? It's like, here's another thing I'm really afraid about. Then we're going to go into the gain. So what will I gain from this decision? Now, I actually find that this is hard for people to focus on. It's easier to focus on sort of what we're running away from rather than what we're running towards. And so this oftentimes takes, a client, if I were to ask them if they're thinking about hiring a coach or investing in their future in some way, I will ask them, what do you think it'll cost you? What are you afraid it will cost you? And they can sort of like roll off the tongue all these different things because that's where their brain is going, right? But if I ask them, what will you gain from this decision? It's all of a sudden harder for them to sort of list those things, or they might be able to list 1 or 2. And so we really want to take some time to get clear on what are the benefits that you will gain and what is the impact of those benefits. So what are the benefits that come from those benefits, and then the benefits that come from those, right? Because if you think about it, we can do that with the cost. It's not just going to cost me money. That money is going to take away from me investing in my children, right? And so we're doing that with the cost. Our brain is naturally doing that oftentimes, but it doesn't do that with the compounding gains or the compounding benefits, which is why it's so hard to compare the two. And we want to train our brain to see all of the benefits we could gain as well. Not only that, but once we know that that's what we're shooting for and that we want to gain, it's easier to ensure that that's what we gain from the program, right? Like if I'm meeting with you, I'm going to say, I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be able to get up earlier on Saturday mornings with them and not sleep in, right? And when I do that, I'm going to read more books with them. And then because we're reading more books on Saturday mornings, they're going to, learn to read faster and they're going to be more confident, right? So the idea is that we can actually have that conversation of like And why would that be beneficial? What would happen if you did that? What would come from that, right? So we actually carve out time to allow ourselves to explore this, because naturally we don't let ourselves do that.
I find that, yeah, what you said about people want to get away from something and they want to escape. They want to escape the hot flashes. They want to release the extra weight that they've put on. And when they're looking forward, it is hard. It is hard to say, like, when I feel like this, when I have this energy. And, you know, there's like a few things that they'll want to do that they haven't been able to do, but like dreaming and really diving into what this is going to feel like when every single day I have more energy. And you know, people have given up so many things. Like I hear people have given up like activities with their kids. They're not doing their crafts. Work is taking longer. And so what is that worth to have more time with your kids and to, you know, to have all those dreams?
Right. The other reason this is so important, something you're touching on, is if we are only ever investing in ourselves and in our future when a problem arises, and to solve a problem, like to absolve ourselves of some pain that we're feeling, right? Then what happens is we create a situation or a life where things have to get bad before we do something about it. And how bad does it have to get before we actually solve it? Whereas if you think about, here's what I'm going to gain from this decision, here's how my life is going to be better. Not only are you making the decision not from like, here's what I'm running away from or the problem I'm trying to solve, but here's what I'm creating in my life. Here's the future that I'm looking towards. Here's sort of the trajectory of my life, and how if I don't make this decision, the trajectory of my life is going to be worse, not better, versus if I do make this decision. And you're not waiting until it gets worse before you do something about it, which again is a very natural human thing that we all do, right? We all think like, I can just stick it out a little bit longer. It's not that bad yet. And things don't have to get bad before we want them to be better, right? And that's what this thought process, I'm really proud of the fact that most of our clients, after they start, will invest in themselves in a lot of other ways. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I think it's because what they are doing is we're sort of training our brain to be more proactive about creating the life that we want, and always making decisions about the future, not necessarily what we're running away from, right? And this is a really great way that we do that. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that some of the women that I speak with are wanting to get ahead of the symptoms. They're like, I'm starting to get hot flashes. I see my body's changing, and I've seen this happen to this friend or my sister, and I don't want that. And in terms of health, the sooner you can start to work on your health and optimize your health, the easier it's going to be. If the stuff has been going on for months and for years, it's going to be harder to get to the underlying causes. And so putting our health first and investing in your health. I mean, if you don't have your health, as they say.
Yeah. And I also think it's like how we do anything is how we do everything. So it's like, once you gain control over one area of your life, it does have a ripple effect, right? So whether they start with taking care of their health and getting in front of this problem, and then that allows them to then get control over other areas of their life, or they start with money and then that trickles through to other areas of their life, it really does have a ripple effect, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Right?
I just want to, if I could jump in, there was one time that I was working with 3 different women on their health, and each one of them like decided that they were going to move. Like they didn't want to live. And like 2 of them, like they all kind of relocated, some of them like further away, because they felt better and they were able to see like, this is really what I want, because they weren't having to, you know, sleep more and not be clear and be happier and be able to say, this is what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I also think the client you were referring to earlier, the folks who say that they want to get ahead of those symptoms, right? I think what they have is that gift that they were able to see that from a friend, that if they don't get ahead of it now, they almost saw their future. They can see that it's going to get worse, right? So it feels more clear to them that I know what's coming, and I know that it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse unless I do something now. And the idea is that Like, we don't always have that clarity, or it feels a little bit like a guesswork, right? But the idea is, by doing a framework like this and having a conversation about it with somebody who's an expert, who knows what to expect or that kind of thing, can help you create these guardrails. So you can say, here's what I'm afraid it will cost me, and I don't want to give that up. I want some benefits, but I'm not willing to give up this in order to do it, kind of thing. It just helps us. And also, here's what I want to gain from this. Here's what's most important for me. It allows that expert to be the type of coach that we need, right? And another client might have very specific parameters as well that are different, and that is okay, but it allows the coach to be like, to really show up for that client as well.
I want to talk one more thing about time, because there are, because there's so much information out there that women try to figure it out themselves. And it's taking a long time, and it's taking trial and error without working with an expert who can help you kind of tweak things. It's never going to be just one answer that you're going to find on Google. Even if it's like one supplement, like there's underlying stuff that has to be addressed. So can you just speak to a little bit about that, about time being a resource?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when it comes to like, what's it going to cost you, that is absolutely one of those tangible costs, right? So it's going to cost me time if I don't make this decision, because I'm going to have to research. I'm going to have to do trial and error. And that trial and error means my progress is slower. And it also means a more frustrating journey, because if you are doing trial and error, you are experiencing some wins probably, but you're not experiencing as significant of wins as a coach can help you achieve. And you're not experiencing them as quickly and as often, which means you're kind of like grasping for like those wins, like, oh God, yes, I got to win. Thank God. Because I really needed that in order to keep the momentum going, in order to feel motivated to keep moving. Right. And in the meantime, you're sort of experiencing a whole bunch of headaches, a whole bunch of missteps, a whole bunch of things that didn't work, right? Even though you're trying it. And all of that is costing time and energy. And again, those are two things that it's harder to quantify necessarily, but I would say that they're they're more valuable than money. In fact, like what something costs us by not making a decision, like, yes, maybe we save a little bit of money, but it's actually costing us more energy and more time. And those are way more valuable. I would rather spend money to get time and energy back, for sure.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah. I think it's one of those moments where oftentimes a client will say, oh, I know you're a financial coach, so I said no to this thing because I knew it would cost me money. And I would say, well, I never want you to make a decision just because it would cost money. Like, that's not, if you want to spend the money to gain something from that, then let's spend the money to gain that thing, right? It's spending money where you're not really going to gain anything that you want. That's what we want to avoid. But if there's something you're hoping to gain, chances are it's not an expense, it's an investment, right? Which is a really big difference. And that's what we're talking about here is like, am I investing this money? And what am I gaining from it? And trying to help our brain compute the differences there, right?
Okay. I know we're good.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
All
right.
This is a really important point that I'm just going to add, because women will say to me, well, what does it cost? And really what it's costing you is your life. It's costing you feeling good at work. It's costing you not being the best mom, the best partner, showing up, even as a friend, and that's really what it's costing you. The investment is in yourself. An investment is something that is long-term, like you're investing in yourself and in your health. So,
yeah. And absolutely. So the fourth step is to ask yourself, now we just step 3 is like, what will I gain and what will the impact of those gains be? So we're really going to explore the gains, right? Step 4 is to ask yourself, do I truly believe that I can experience those gains? Do I believe that those gains are possible for me? And my guess for a lot of us coaches is that this is what we're battling against a lot of the times when it comes to a client making a decision. And what I mean by that is, if a client of mine has been struggling financially for decades, right? And here I am painting a picture of how much better they'll feel about money, how much more money they'll have in the bank, their net worth will increase, and those types of things. What they're bumping up against, and even if they believe that those gains are possible for other people, maybe it's not really possible for them, right? So your clients might be thinking, well, yes, I want to feel better and I don't want the hot flashes and I want to be more present with my friends, but will I really achieve that, right? Is that really possible for me? Because maybe I've been feeling crappy for so long that I don't even know if that's possible, right? And it's sort of this idea of like, it's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. And if I don't think that those things are possible for me, then that is what's holding me back. It's not the cost. It's not even what I will gain. It's that the gains could far outweigh the cost. It's that I don't believe those gains are possible for me personally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a gut check moment oftentimes, right? So when I'm having conversations with a client and they're looking to make a decision, I will say those benefits sound amazing. And you can see a client light up when they're talking about the benefits, right? Like they really want that for themselves. And then when you ask the question of like, and do you believe those are possible for you? You can kind of see them slouch a little bit, or it's like their body language changes. And there's two steps that I have a client take in this moment. If the answer is no, I don't know that that's possible for me, or I have doubts, right? That's possible for me. Number one is to draw on proof from your own life. Find an example of when you did make changes and you saw great benefits and had a transformation as a result of it, where you were able to shift into sort of a new person and you liked that new person better, right? Like think of an example of that time in your life, because it's very clear that you can do this. You've already done it, right? So that is step number one. And step number two, I always say, if you don't have this belief, then this is a reason to hire a coach, not a reason not to. And the reason I say that is because your coach probably believes in you and you're going to borrow on that belief for a little while. You need them to believe in you because you don't even believe it yourself yet. So you kind of need them to sort of like carry you along at first until you start to believe in it, until you start to see those results. And it's okay to not believe it right away, but that is actually a reason to commit, not to commit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And it's just good for your coach to know that. If I know a client of mine is starting and they have a lot of doubts or hesitations, or they're thinking like, I don't know if this is possible for me, my job as their coach is I'm going to celebrate every small win, every baby step of progress. Like I'm going to highlight those more than someone who's like, oh, I know I got this, let's go sort of mentality, right? So again, it's just really helpful for the coaching relationship. And this is why I always say that this framework helps people to emotionally and mentally prepare for the journey ahead, because oftentimes it's not just steps or boxes they're checking off a to-do list. It's so much more than that. And this really helps the relationship form in a really effective way as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was step 4.
Yeah. It's a mindset upgrade. And I love the idea of celebrating every small win. That's huge.
Good. So step 5 is then to compare the gains and the costs, right? So the idea is believing that it's possible for you, having a lot of clarity on here's what it's going to cost me, here's what I'm afraid it's going to cost me, and here's how I could benefit from this decision. Here's the ways that I could gain from this. And when you have them right in front of you, and it's both tangible and intangible costs, right? And tangible and intangible benefits, then we're able to compare the two more precisely. And we're making the decision from our future, right? Of here's where I will be in the future. It's going to cost me this money, or it's going to cost me some time or something like that. But here's how I'm going to benefit from that investment. And the idea is hopefully the decisions we're making are where the benefits outweigh the costs, right? Like those are the types of decisions we're trying to make. But when we're comparing it as simple as like pros and cons, it's not deep enough. It doesn't get to the heart of what the ultimate decision is that we're trying to make. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And this idea about your future self and investing in your future self, because it's not just investing in the future, but how you're going to show up in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the question I always say, Marjorie, with our clients, and granted, typically we're looking at their finances right in front of us, but the idea is like, if they want to move forward, if they're like looking at it and the decision is like, yes, I want these benefits, this is what I want for my life, this is the decision I want to make. The question then becomes, how can I afford this? Not can I afford this? It's how can I afford this? And the idea is like, obviously I know I'm going to gain more than it's going to cost me. So it's worth the investment. Now it's just a matter of figuring out the logistics of that investment, right? Like it's very normal. And I know I'm a financial person, so a lot of people are often surprised when I say this, but it's very normal when we're investing in our future that we're going to feel the cost of it first and the benefits take time to gain, right? So maybe we'll have a cash outlay right? Or I know when I start with my clients, we're meeting every single week for the first month. It's pretty intense meeting schedules because there's a lot of moving parts to money that we're trying to gain control over, right? So it's going to cost more in that first month. But then usually by the second or third month is when we're seeing the financial gains, we're feeling better, all the confidence is there, that sort of thing. This is very normal whenever we're investing in our future, that we're going to experience the cost first, but the benefits will outweigh them, but they don't outweigh them overnight. Right? It's not like tomorrow, all of a sudden I start, being positive ROI on this. So the idea here is we may need to put something on a credit card. We may need to take money out of savings or something like that, but we can replenish those things, right? Because the idea is that we're investing in the future. We're not necessarily having an expense right away. It's going to pay for itself. It just might take a little while to pay for itself.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Do you have another minute? I know
Yeah.
we've gone over.
Yes.
I'm single, so I don't have a partner, but in terms of when women are investing in themselves in their lives, sometimes it's a decision that they are handing over to someone else to make that decision about how it's going to affect their health. So I would love for you to just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important, first of all, if that person, before they hop on a consultation or a call or something like that, that is a time when you do want to have a conversation as well. So the person should be aware, and they maybe already are, but I know sometimes they may not be, where the woman isn't talking to their spouse about how they're feeling and how they're losing sleep and that they're having hot flashes and they're feeling sick to their stomach at random times throughout the day, or whatever the symptoms are and that sort of thing. And so the first step is to share those, because it's really hard to go to somebody and say, I want to solve this problem that, oh, by the way, you didn't even know I was experiencing, right? And it's going to cost me, $5,000 or whatever the number is, right? And so there's this idea of like, it's throwing a lot at a person in one moment. And most significant others care about their spouse, and the idea is that they want to help you solve it first. They're kind of thinking like, let me help you solve this. We don't need to invest in something else first. Let me help you because I haven't been able to help you yet, right? So the idea is, I would say first, just be honest about how you're feeling, what you're experiencing, those types of things. And when you then bring up the subject of like, I want to get help with this problem, I want to seek some guidance, I want to meet with an expert who can help me, a professional who knows what they're doing and that kind of thing. Where I think this conversation tends to go wrong is the person says, I want to hire this coach, it's this much money, and I'm going to get 2 sessions a month, or whatever the like cadence of meeting schedule is and that kind of thing. Chances are, let's say I'm thinking of hiring you. The reason I'm thinking of hiring you is not because of the number of sessions I get during a period of time. It's because of the impact I think it's going to have on me and the way I feel. And that is what I need to express to my significant other if I feel like that is a step that I need to take, right? And this is where it's tough because financially speaking, everyone's in a different boat, right? So it's one of those things where, depending on the investment, I can't tell one person, just do it and tell your spouse afterwards, they'll be okay with it, right? Like that could cause a severe financial hardship for some people. And those decisions should be made sort of in tandem a lot of times, right? If it's going to cause a hardship. But when you're having that conversation coming from an empowered place of, here's why this is good for me, here's why this is right for my future, here's why I think this will benefit us more than it's going to cost us, right? So this framework gives you the tools of what to communicate with this person of like, I've thought through this. I know it's going to cost us this much, but it's going to benefit us in these other ways, which are even better, right? Like these ways are more than how much it's going to cost us. The other thing, and I'm not sure if you do this, but, I will offer, let's talk to each other. Let's have your spouse get on the phone with me so that they can know that I'm a real person. I'm not, just some online person who you're getting swindled by or like that kind of thing. Because oftentimes this person doesn't have the relationship. They haven't been following me, online and seeing that I, get it, or they're not resonating with the things I'm posting and that sort of thing, but their significant other is. So the idea is to go into those conversations with as much empowerment as possible. And again, talking about the trajectory of why you're doing it. The trajectory of my future is better if I make this decision for myself than where I'm at today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And most of the women that I speak with, their husbands don't know how much they're struggling because they don't feel that they can keep saying I'm tired and whatever. So they just kind of hold it in, which makes it really hard. But I love having both people on the phone so that they can really, that the spouse can really understand how hard this has been for them. And then the spouse can ask the questions as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, just sort of giving them an opportunity to say, what concerns do you have about this? What are your fears? Again, sort of have them go through the same framework, right? Of like, what are you worried that this will cost us? And that way that person who's making the commitment in their future knows their spouse's guardrails, right? Like, it's really important. We're not making these decisions sort of in a bubble, right? We're making them with another person's life could be affected as well. And so talking through that in a non-judgmental way. I mean, I do think it is the benefit of having a coach there to facilitate the conversation, right? So if they can both be on the call, that's always best. It definitely keeps the conversation productive and sort of wholesome, if you will, which I think is really important.
I agree. Yeah, that's super helpful about that too. So we covered the framework.
Yes.
I love it so much.
Good.
I love how you set this up, and I'm so happy that you were here. So tell us how women can reach you. So if they are ready to have the fiscal fitness that they want in their life, that they can help you, that you can help them.
Yes, Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. Say that 5 times fast, right? That is my business name, but we help people all over the country, not just in Phoenix. That's just where I live, is Phoenix. But Fiscal Fitness, it's really helping you get your finances in shape, feel more confident. I always say that take any goal you have in life. It does not matter whether it has to do with money or not. Take any goal you have, and having a plan in place with your money makes achieving that goal better and faster. Absolutely. So having a plan in place with your money, you can achieve any goal so much faster. And so that's essentially what we help our clients to do, is get on a plan with their money to achieve a particular goal that they have in their life. And you can find us at fiscalfitnessphx.com, fiscalfitnessphx.com. I'm also on Instagram under Coach Kelsa, if someone's on Instagram and wants to follow me over there.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on over there. It's really fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so on your website, they'll find all your information, and you have, is there a call that you have? Like,
yep. Yep. You can do a free coaching call with us. So hop on a call with us. We always say that our job is to give people the next best step in their financial journey. So there are instances where we might refer you to an accountant, or to, let's say, a charitable organization that maybe offers some free support, depending on sort of the situation the person finds them in, whether that's an attorney or something like that. And if we can help you, we'll tell you that too, and we'll point you in the right direction to get the support that you need. But yeah, we do a free call with everybody. So just check us out, and the link to schedule is right on our website.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And this has just been so helpful, just in talking about how women can invest in themselves and what they want their lives to look like, whether, and within health, and what that really is going to look like when they have a life where they're feeling great and they're healthy and they're happy, and all of the ripple effects around them in the world.
And I'll tell you really quickly, I know we got to hop off, but my sisters and I have had this conversation. I have 2 sisters, and we've had this conversation so many times as an adult, that our mom was a single mom, definitely did her best, but prioritized us in a lot of ways. And we say all the time how we really wish that she would have put herself first in a lot of decisions, because there are so many times where we knew she put us first and she said no to herself because of that. And both me and my sisters have some guilt around that as adults, around this idea that, like, did we ask for too much? Did we take too much? But we were young. We didn't know any better, right? And now we look back, hindsight of, like, we wish that she would have told us no more and said yes to herself more. I mean, we've had that conversation as adults. And, I think about, like, I wish she had a hobby or something she did for herself that, like she said, every Tuesday night, this is where I go, and it doesn't matter what else is going on with my kids. This is what I do for myself. we've had those conversations, and I wish she had these tools. Like, part of the reason why I do what I do is because I saw her struggle financially my whole childhood, and just wishing that she had tools like this, back in the day. I think she would have been happier. And I do think we would have been more proud as well of sort of the decisions that she made. So I just wanted to give that. I know you work with a lot of older women who have young children, and I know children are so important. I've got 2 6-year-olds, but I do think it's so important for them to see you taking care of yourself, for sure.
I couldn't agree more. And it's setting an example for your children that as a parent, you're taking care of yourself as well.
Yeah. I have a daughter, and I always try to ask myself, if she's a mom someday and she's experiencing what I'm experiencing right now, what's the decision that I hope she would make? Right? Because it's so easy to want for her like the best life. Like, I want her to have the best life, right? And to feel like she's got a great balance between loving her own life for herself and also loving her children and that kind of thing. And so if I can imagine her making the decision, what would I want for her? It makes it a lot easier for me to make a good decision, I think.
I love that. You're such a good
Thank
mom.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thinking that way. And well, this has been so great to talk to you. I think we could talk for another 45 minutes, but this has been fantastic. It's been such a pleasure having you and learning from you, Kelsa.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. See you soon.
Bye.